So, it's a Sunday. I'm still fasting. Um, so I started on a Sunday, and now what is that, like 14 days in? Working on day 15, I think that is. Can't do math in my head, sorry. Um, so let's just say 14 days fasted. It's going okay. It's going a lot better than I would have thought in terms of one specific thing. I would have thought I couldn't get in and out of stores a lot with food in them, and that's not true. I've gone into Publix for just using their restroom. I've gone in and grabbed a couple of things for my daughter a couple of times. Isn't it what I find in the past years that I've done extended fasting to be normal, to get that far into a extended fast and to be able to be around food a lot. But I've been totally fine with it. I still do get hunger pains, not necessarily extra from going in, and not necessarily temptation from going in, but just I kept on like the first week. This week I got some hunger pains and some other symptoms. That the lower GI symptoms did die down a bunch, especially after, let's say, Tuesday of this last week. But the other thing that came up was that I felt really, really weak at times, just like sort of a passing wave of, ooh, super weak, might fall over. Don't fall over, obviously. I haven't really done that. But you get kind of a feeling like you might faint. But I'm not too worried about that, even though it doesn't feel great. I'm not a fainter. I've never fainted once in my life, so that's not a big concern for me. So I'm doing pretty fine compared to what you would think for just how do I feel on this. Despite times that there's some moments of not feeling great, just when I'm fasting, I feel more clear-headed and more able to function, especially cognitively, than I hardly do any other time in my life. So clearly fasting gets rid of inflammation, including brain inflammation. That's an awesome thing. It helps you get in a better state of mind spiritually. Not that I was suffering so much spiritually. I believe very deeply, but it does help a lot. It does some interesting things for people, and I highly recommend that people who are Christians who have not been fasting in the past should try it. Do a fast devoted to God and pray. Devoted prayer and fasting time where you're doing the fast, and then you also have those prayer times within it. So many different thoughts have come and gone that I thought about making videos about occasionally, but since the channel I'm trying to keep here is meant to be mostly documentation of something different, and since fasting is meant to be a little more personal, and also people just don't need to hear my every thought on every spiritual topic, but there's a lot of them. There's a lot of stuff going on in that way. I believe in God very deeply. I am deeply convicted, and I believe that it should affect every part of my life. It should affect every part of my thinking, and it does. God is who He is, no matter how much we're suffering. We live in a fallen world. We know there is suffering here. So if I can't afford to eat, that's the way it is. Like when faced with I believe it was the fiery furnace when the quote comes from, when the men said, our God can deliver us, and even if He doesn't, He's still God. That's the truth of this. God is who He is. He's the great I am, and I know He can do this for me. I know He can turn everything around, and you know what? If He chooses not to, He's still God, and He's still worthy of my devotion. Just a few minutes ago, I watched a little video on YouTube. I'm always politically passionate and active. I'm always looking at all kinds of stuff, and one of the voices on the national stage that I paid attention to sometimes, probably often enough to say more than just regularly, but the way I am, I tune in and out of people regardless of how much I might watch them for a while, and then I'll disappear again for a while out of their audience. But anyway, Jordan Peterson I have some respect for, and it's going a long way, by the way, for me to say I have any respect for anyone on the national stage. But he was in that thing. I'm sure some of y'all, if anyone watches this, have heard of. He was on a Jubilee show, of all things. things. Not that I have any respect for Jubilee or I've ever really watched a full episode of it, but you know, people show you clips and you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't look like a very good show. So I had seen all these clips of him before on Jubilee where a bunch of people were talking bad about him, which is why I noticed was the headlines acting like he had performed really badly. And I watched these little clips and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Jubilee looks bad, and in fact, the people who are supposedly owning Jordan Peterson look pretty bad too, but maybe not as bad as Jubilee itself. It just didn't look like what everybody kept saying it was. So it's interesting when the whole internet seems as if they're all going in a certain direction, and you're thinking, no. But you know, in the way you evaluate a source, there's a lot involved. You have to look at many aspects and clues of, do they seem honest to you? And this is one of the reasons why I have some respect for Jordan Peterson. I think he has intellectual integrity, and I think that's a very rare thing in the world right now. And I think he has what I would call, I don't usually think about this one as much for most people or for anyone, but let's say he has something I would call intellectual flexibility and adaptability. Again, it's a very rare thing in the world, it seems like right now. He seems pretty good at just carrying on the public discourse in a more honorable way than most of what goes on in public discourse. So when I saw that, I thought it was crazy. I was like, he's not getting owned. Something's happened here, and I sort of suspected that Jubilee set him up to make that look crazy. Well, lo and behold, it came out. He got set up. Jubilee did bad things involved. That was pretty corrupt of them. So I was really relieved to see it, but anyway, it's just what I was watching today. It's not a huge factor in my life, I guess, but I was really happy to see that the truth was coming out to say, you know, this is what happened. That was not what it looked like. So I am really careful how I evaluate my sources and who I'll listen to. And the vast majority of people who I do respect, which makes it sound like there's so many of them to choose from to call them any of it the vast majority, but mostly those people that do, it does include, they have that rare quality of intellectual integrity. So there was a few things in this little video I saw that I didn't see whatever was the original video, but it was clips from a video where he was talking about that a little bit. He said a thing and it really struck me, and it reminded me I wanted to make a video today. He said, if you believe, that really does mean that you would go to the cross. That's the truth. I would go to the cross. I've noticed it in some things he said in the past about what does the word belief mean. And at the time I thought that he said he had a certain disagreement with the definition of a word within it, and I thought, I don't know if that's the word you're having a problem with. And I had a little different thing going on in my own mind, which, not for me to project on him. He can say what he wants about what he believes, obviously, and he knows better than I do what he believes. But I had, in my own thoughts, that's kind of where I was going. I was like, I think there's a different word there that you and I disagree on. But I am a believer. I am a person who wants to own it and say publicly I'm a believer. I think it's important from what God teaches that we are supposed to publicly be willing to confess that Jesus is the Son of God. And I would encourage all Christians, if you can't just own it publicly, if there's places where you would hide it, please work on that. It's important. But I do. I believe God exists just like I believe the chair I'm sitting on exists. I believe he's real. I believe he is an entity like I am a human entity, but he's a far greater and almost incomprehensible type, well, truly incomprehensible type of entity, that much greater than ourselves. But I believe he exists every bit as much and as solidly as the chair I'm sitting on exists. So that's a big thing. That's really, I think it's important. I hope all believers that think they believe in God and are interested in things to do with, God is good, Jesus is a great story, he's a good influence on our society. All those things are true. It's all really good stuff, but I think it's deeper than that. I think God is exactly who he claims to be in the Bible. And I think Jesus is exactly who the Bible claims him to be. And I think we have to be willing to go to the cross. And in relation to the things going on in my life and the fact that there's suffering and there's hardship, true story, I don't want to turn on my beliefs. I don't want to choose behaviors that are based on, well, now I have to do this because we're so poor and the economy and is so warped and the bureaucracy is so warped and all the millions of things that feed into all that. And yeah, the world around us is warped. We live in a fallen world, and it's disgusting when you add it all up, all the wrong things and all the things that most people go along with and find their own way to adapt to them, whether those things are right to do or not. I'm going to keep praying and fasting for God to turn this around. And if we have a turnaround and I can buy food in the future and make rent, etc., get all the stuff in there financially, then I'll be so incredibly grateful that that was done for me by God. If the answer is no, I'm going to keep sitting under this tree like Hagar did. Not saying she's one of the great heroes of the Bible, but it's a very interesting story and it has a lesson in it, at least one or two. Right now I can still get to work as a person who's fasting. I'm just not going to eat. And if that just goes on and it's not God's plan for me to ever be able to again, then that'll be what goes on, and that's okay. I don't have to live on this earth. I will go to whatever lengths it takes to continue to serve God, even as I live in this evil world. The swamp will do what the swamp will do. If they want to keep up the bureaucratic state, if they want to keep up the inflating beef prices, obviously I could add on a million things on that they might want to keep doing. They will enrich themselves, and they'll meet justice after they get to the judgment seat, after they're passed away from this earth. And that's okay. It's not mine to wreak vengeance on these people. I'm just going to do my own thing over here, believing in God and holding fast to that. And because I know a few people are watching, I'd like to encourage you. God is that important. The fact that Jesus is the Son of God is that important. The fact that he came and gave his life to wipe away the things I've done wrong is that important. It matters. So I'm about done for today. God bless every one of you.